They warned us that something was coming.
If there is ever an end in this forever war, it will be because of you and your strong right hand.
I'm on your side!
Sorry, my bad.
Who you calling monster, pal? You look in the mirror recently?
He's an asshole.
Sorry! I interrupt!
On the contrary, you've arrived just in time.
Hey everybody, we finally got that Hellboy footage a day early. IGN dropped this trailer, so I guess they wanted it to post early. Whatever, we'll break it down. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. The movie's coming out next year, but there'll be plenty more trailers before that happens. Okay, so David Harbour wielding Excalibur on fire. Milla Jovovich, who's playing Nimue, the Lady of the Lake, aka the greatest of all British witches, who is the main villain of this movie. So if it wasn't clear who she's playing and you haven't read any of the Hellboy comics, I'll try to explain because I think this is based somewhat on The Wild Hunt, and they're using that as a sort of transition from the Guillermo del Toro movies to explain how everything looks a little bit different. So at the beginning of that story, Hellboy has been trapped in another world by another group. He comes back, so he has to sort of reintroduce himself to all these other people. Ian McShane, as you can see, is playing his father, Professor Bruttenholm. So it's an R-rated reimagining of the Hellboy character. That's why you meet all the BPRD characters, and you actually go to the BPRD for the first time. Like, he makes the joke about the entrance in the trailer. They probably won't dedicate quite as much time during this movie to his origin story as the original Guillermo del Toro movies did. The beginning of that movie started with the Nazis summoning him to Earth, because yeah, he's a really cool character, but there's this long-term prophecy about him bringing about the destruction of the world with the right hand of doom. That's what his big giant hand is called. So of course we gotta say it, David Harbour looks very different, sounds very different from the Ron Perlman Hellboy. I have a very special place in my heart for those movies. The first one I still think is the best one, but the story that it seems like they picked to base this new R-rated version on sounds like it's going to be much bigger. If you haven't read The Wild Hunt and you don't know about Hellboy wielding Excalibur, it's actually a pretty cool story, but you hear Ian McShane give you a little bit of a teaser for the overarching story when he talks about the Forever War and you see Hellboy walking to retrieve Excalibur. If you're not familiar with Hellboy mythology, this incorporates a lot of the mythology of the King Arthur Chronicles, you know, in real life. Arthur, Pendragon, Knights of the Round Table, Camelot, all that. So within the world of Hellboy, the rules about wielding Excalibur is that only descendants, genetic descendants of King Arthur Pendragon can pull the sword out of the stone. Sometimes it will disappear for centuries, then reappear. So it reappears during this story, and Hellboy is able to retrieve it, surprise, because he is the descendant of King Arthur, marking him as the rightful king of Britain. So Hellboy, who's sort of like this prince of hell, like he has the crown of flames that you see during the Guillermo del Toro movies, the crown of flames is also a nice reference to being the rightful king of Britain. That enables him to wield Excalibur, and because of his demonic abilities, that's why he's able to light the sword on fire. But even if you're familiar with the King Arthur Chronicles, because this is the world of Hellboy and it's sort of their spin on the King Arthur mythology, the sword gives Hellboy a lot of extra powers. So because he's a rightful king of Britain wielding the sword, he actually gets to resurrect a lot of dead British knights to fight for him in this big war against Nimue. The story of her character is a little more complex. I don't know how much of it they're going to do from the comic book, but she was the most powerful British witch in history, but kind of a villain, kind of crazy. So what happened is that when she was killed, they had to separate her body into a bunch of different pieces because she was so powerful that if you laid her corpse pieces on top of each other, they would just reform her body and she would be resurrected. So you basically have to chop her body up and put all the pieces in different boxes so that her body can't reform. So when the British witches in present day need a strong leader, they ask Hellboy, he refuses, they choose her and then grant a couple people permission to reform her body and bring her back to life. But because she's so powerful, the dragons of the apocalypse that have been imprisoned choose her as their vessel to return to Earth and destroy everything, which I think is what this scene in the trailer is meant to imply. The dragon flying over what looks like London set on fire, because obviously a lot of this feels very British because they're doing Excalibur Excalibur, they're doing the King Arthur Chronicles, British mythology, so it makes sense that the story takes place in England. But if you're not familiar with the Dragons of the Apocalypse, it's basically the Hellboy comics spin on the Book of Revelations. So in the Christian Bible, there's this big reckoning for planet Earth, but in the Hellboy comics, it's through these special dragons that were imprisoned a long time ago by the right hand of Doom. Remember, the hand that Hellboy has attached to his body. So what we might wind up with in this movie, this is just me speculating, is that Hellboy, wielding Excalibur, will find Milla Jovovich's Nimue character, who becomes possessed by the dragons of the Revelations, so you literally have Hellboy, Dragon Slayer with Excalibur. So the story feels like a very classic British myth. Like we just got that Guy Ritchie King Arthur film. It didn't go over so well, but everybody has very well intentioned. So this is just a slightly different spin on that idea. But obviously that's just a quick once-over, and the trailer doesn't give you a real big idea for how deep this goes. So if you're a big fan of really cool mythology like that, I would recommend checking out some of the Hellboy comics, starting with The Wild Hunt. There are only a couple things about the trailer that bother me. I'm not super hot on the pop song that they chose and some of the corny jokes that they tried to incorporate into this. If you're really bummed out that Guillermo del Toro is involved with this, don't worry. I believe he's given his blessing. Ron Perlman has also given his blessing to David Harbour. David Harbour is a great actor. They're definitely swinging for the fence with the story in the scope that they're going with. So it'll be interesting to see some of the subsequent trailers. Usually the first teaser trailer doesn't give you a really big idea about the story, but like I said, I think this is largely based on The Wild Hunt, the Hellboy comics incorporating a lot of the King Arthur mythology into their stories. It's also a re-exploration and a recontextualization of Hellboy's origin story itself. So even though it's not the origin story that we got with the Guillermo del Toro first movie, it's still an origin story of sorts. So I think they're trying to use it as a jumping off point for people who may have never seen that original Hellboy film. So we'll see how far they go with it, because if it does well, they'll probably do sequels, so we'll see where they continue. But let me know in the comments what's your favorite part of the trailer and what are you looking forward to most. If you are a big Hellboy comic book fan too, let me know what's your favorite comic book story. While you wait for everything, click here for a bunch of brand new Game of Thrones Season 8 promos, and click here for my brand new Avengers Endgame video. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.